Coming to you from Silicon Slopes, I'm Christina Ayanian with Nasdaq. And joining me is co-founder and CEO of Pattern, David Wright. David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, the e-commerce space represents a $7 trillion market, and it's one of the fastest growing spaces within the tech sector. What excites you about this?
Well,
a lot.
Yeah, it's underpenetrated still. It sounds big, of course, but in the US, for example, it's still only about 20% of the market. Globally, the penetration, it sounds incredible, but it's still only around 60% penetrated, which means still there's 40% of the people who aren't even using any e-commerce at all globally. So even if, say we're sitting at 80%, in the US that's digital, or that's brick and mortar, 20% digital, and it moves 1% one way, you're talking, the market caps of most large companies with a percent swing. So obviously, the growth is exciting, but what's more exciting is the digital nature of it. For data science nerds like myself, is that you can have a much bigger impact on it by doing it well and engaging fully with tech. So it's just a fun problem to solve, and it's massive.
Yeah, Pattern is also at the forefront of e-commerce, and with your success, you've surpassed $1 billion in sales. That's incredible. Congratulations. Tremendous growth over the past 10 years since your founding. What has been your secret sauce?
Every once in a while people say hey, you guys are at $1 billion, you guys are big. It's super small. We talked $1 trillion. We're still very small. It took us, I think, 9 years to hit $1 billion, and we'll hit the second billion in 2, and then, we'll just keep rolling from there. But of course, there's only one secret sauce for every company. And if they don't get this, then I don't think they'll ever be big. It's just people. And I would say most companies think they're hiring the best. You hear the people, but if you just take the law of averages, probably they're hiring average, right? But then you start looking at the companies that have true discipline around this, and I won't list them all, but there's a few that I really think, look up to. We've modeled a lot of our hiring and practices around those, and I think we're uniquely good at bringing on great talent, so you can miss a lot of things. So when you're running, in my seat, I'm one person of 1,500. I miss things all the time. It doesn't even matter, because I got somebody else who figured it out before I even figured it out, and already solved it before I even knew about it. And that is what it will take to tackle a $7 trillion, space.
It's really that team dynamic.
Yeah, that's the only way. No one's smart enough to figure out those things on their own.
Now, you don't come from a retail background, but you've been so successful. How do you compete with others that have a background in this space?
Gosh, that was a disadvantage a little bit, but it's turned out to be, I think, an advantage. There's some basics that you don't know when you don't grow up branding and retail. If you grow up all tech, all data science. So every time, people will say things like return on ad spend. And they sound great, and you dive into it as a data scientist, and you dive into it and you're like, this is sort of fraudulent, because it's not really true. And then you start talking to people and like, oh yeah, we are. No, it's not true. It's like, well, why are we still doing it then? So there is a lot of questions we ask that help and have provided significant value. And we've grown brands from 3 million to 50 million, and one from 8 million to 150 million, one from around 12 to 18 million to over 200 million. And we're just applying what they do best, building great products, and what we do best is applying technology to help them grow.
So why do you do it?
I don't know, it's fun. If you've ever had fun problems to solve, you just wake up every morning, every once in a while someone asks me hey, you already have a ton of money, why do you care? And I'm like, I don't know. I just like to solve problems, and it's almost like, how when you do something, you don't ever want to do it in a way that would be second best, or you just want to leave it out on the field. My daughter called me up the other day. She's going to University of Arizona. You know how they have at school sometimes these little things, it's like they tell the kids to go ask someone they know, about how, what success means or failure or whatever. And she's like, Dad, what is success and failure? And I'm like, took me a long time. I was like, I don't know, Brooke, And then I was like, I think it's if you just leave it on the field in whatever you're doing. So, I'm not totally sure why, but I don't know how to not leave it on the field.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
I just have a fun time doing it.
And you reach your full potential by doing so.
Yeah.
This market is so focused on cash and profitability. How do you keep up with that without sacrificing growth?
Oh yeah, the finance people are always tiring on that because they're always focused on, they got all these metrics and they're somewhat tiring around, you have to figure those things out or else you can't survive, but they're not that fun. But we figured it out for the most part because we have great people, we have a great CFO, and so we're much better than we were 2 years ago. We didn't naturally come upon those things. I think when we raised our Series A, our days payable was 11. I thought that was fine. We used to go to the bank every Friday, we'd pay all the brands. They loved it. But we've learned that best in class is 60 to 90 days payable. So now we're a lot closer and we aren't losing tons of money all the time. We're still doing the same thing and we're just now getting to a point where we're cash flow neutral and positive growth. I don't know if all the finance people will love all of that, but because we have an approach that is we charge a low margin and we eke out cash flow so we're pretty neutral. Which I know when a public market may not particularly like that, but we will win the whole space. So they might like that. So this is where, it's that's always a fun balance. I think we've hit a nice balance there.
Yeah, and now AI is the hottest topic nowadays. With your tech background, how are you incorporating AI within Pattern?
It's funny, it's weird to even talk about now. You almost feel dirty talking about it now because 8 years ago we were doing AI. We have a patent that we got 4 or 5 years ago on machine learning around advertising, which is all AI. And so it was somewhat natural for us, but what you're probably talking about is a lot of the transformer models with GPT and whatnot that have sort of become, there's a paper written in 2017, 8 people wrote it, that has almost transformed the world the way we think about, at least textual analysis. And so we're jumping on that because it's almost perfect for e-com because we do a lot of content, which is what it's primed to be best at. So it's been extraordinarily valuable moving us forward, the latest iterations of AI, but it's always been a thing, at least for the last, since 1956 it was first coined in a paper. Always been a thing in my life, so I guess we're taking advantage of the newest trends probably like anybody else. What
you're doing is you're really understanding brand and consumer needs, and now is AI accelerating that?
Oh yeah, you can in 7 minutes, we can create a 350-page paper documenting a brand in almost every aspect, what its products are, what its jobs to be done are, how it's viewed in a market, and AI, can dump 350 pages in 7 minutes to help a brand even understand their own ecosystem. And then you can take that and you can build content, you can build it in any language, you can build it immediately, so it is really fun. And the cost structures will go down. So for brands to do e-commerce globally, it's very expensive. Our cost to serve globally is 36% of top line revenue. But with AI, we've already started seeing pretty significant reductions in that. And that will just continue. Brands who don't do it, they will be really behind those who do.
You started investing in AI several years ago, so you really have first mover advantage. How is that an added advantage as to starting now?
Gosh, I don't know if it matters so much that we move first. It's more what you're naturally inclined to do. So that's where we talk about the retail thing. As Pattern, we're naturally inclined to do AI and machine learning, natural language processing. That's sort of what we're born to do. And so we can sort of keep up with whatever comes our way because we're naturally inclined. And I had a group come to me that was more of a retail company, and they're like, hey, an agency, and they're like, hey, should we just call it a day and quit? after I gave a talk one time, they're like, hey, so it seems like we're gonna maybe lose all of our jobs. And I was like, and they're like, how do we get into AI? And I didn't know how to answer. I'm like, if you're not naturally inclined to want to get into AI, I don't know how you just get into it. So I think that's more the advantage, is that, whatever comes our way, we'll figure out really quick and we'll move really quick, versus trying to, because there's a lot of companies out there that are like, how do we get into AI? It's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, hire some really smart people and just do it right away. But you're not going to do it on less than, 20 people.
Absolutely. It is a hot topic, and I feel like as the years go on, we won't be having this conversation because it's just going to be embedded within every
the
company,
DNA of,
right? Yeah.
It will have to be.
And it's in your genes. It's literally at the heart and soul of what you do.
Luckily. We sort of got fortunate there, yeah.
What's next for Pattern?
Well, we've got a lot of really interesting things on the roadmap, but I would say, by far the biggest is leveraging AI for content globally. And there's a lot of wiring. When you think about a lot of the AI that's out there, little tools, it's like, hey, you want to create a listing or some content. The problem is you can't do anything with it, because there's, over 50 global marketplaces. You have to get the content all up in all of those places, and that requires mass amounts of people or work. So right now we're building all the tools that wire the AI together. It doesn't even do AI, but we're like, how do I get this piece of content from here to there? And how do I check to see whether it got there? And how do I check to see whether it's still there? So a lot of the wiring around AI, which people are largely ignoring because they're like, AI is so cool, but it's somewhat useless unless you wire it all up for e-com. That's largely what our next 6 months looks like, at least.
Is it about adding that human touch to AI?
Well, take, for example, say you build a piece of content and you're going to get it out on, say, an Amazon. If you just take a file straight, Amazon has what they call a master file. If you just say, I'm going to use their master file, upload it, it fails 17% of the time. So even though you created the content with AI, you try to just upload it directly, it's going to fail 20% of the time. So somebody has to fix that, submit a ticket. And then you don't just have Amazon. You have Walmart, you have Target, you have JD, you have Tmall, you have Zalando, you have Otto. You have so you have to get that piece of content up in all the languages everywhere, and you have to syndicate that. All of that, that whole process is just either you hire a bunch of people to do it, or you have to build tech around it. But, so AI is cool, it got us halfway there, and now we're like, okay, now we have all this cool content, now it's useless.
What's the next wave?
It's useless unless it's there where someone can see it and convert. And then you have to measure whether it's working. So there's a lot of measurement around it, which AI doesn't do. So, hey, is this converting? Is it converting better than yesterday? And then brands are also very worried about compliance. So is my content in compliance with, say, my style guide? So are we using the color schemes that I want? All of those things is more like wiring behind AI so that brands want to prove it. It's actually in compliance. It's actually where a consumer will pick it up and, look at it. And so we're wiring up the e-commerce version of AI right now is the next probably 6 months. That's
amazing. It's interesting how you're incorporating it to all aspects of the business. And it's interesting how AI is playing such an integral role in all industries.
Yeah. It'll be fascinating to see where we go over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your insights, and we look forward to continue following your story.
Thank you.